Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into Mel Robbins's 5-second rule.
The 5-second rule.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
those moments when you feel like you want to make a change,
Yes,
but you hesitate.
absolutely.
We're going to unpack how to break free from those moments and unlock the power of acting on instinct.
Yeah, it's amazing how often we silence those inner nudges, isn't it?
It really is. And Mel Robbins' own story is a perfect example.
Yeah.
She talks about feeling stuck, even though from the outside her life looked pretty great.
Yeah.
Successful lawyer,
Mhm.
family, all the trappings of success, but still feeling unhappy.
Exactly, and that's a crucial point because outward achievements don't always equal inner fulfillment.
Right.
And this internal struggle is actually what sparked the 5-second rule. Robbins was watching a rocket launch countdown on TV, feeling utterly stuck,
Wow.
and had this almost involuntary thought,
Okay.
launch yourself out of bed tomorrow like a rocket.
It's funny how our brains work like that, right?
Yeah.
You're feeling stuck and boom, this vivid image pops up.
Right.
But did she just dismiss it as a random thought?
Not at all. This seemingly random thought was actually her brain trying to guide her towards a goal, even if she wasn't consciously aware of it at the time.
Interesting.
Think about how our brains work. We set goals.
Right.
And even subconsciously, our brains start creating a mental roadmap to
Hmm.
achieve them.
Okay.
So when we encounter something related to those goals, even indirectly, like a rocket launch
Yeah.
representing a fresh start, our brain sends up these flares,
Okay.
these instincts to nudge us in the right direction.
Okay, so it's like our brains are these incredible navigation systems constantly scanning for opportunities to move us towards what we want,
Yes,
even if those signs are subtle.
exactly.
And in Robin's case, that rocket launch was a giant flashing arrow.
Precisely. And the 5-second rule at its core is about learning to recognize and act on those flares,
Right.
those gut feelings before our doubts and fears have a chance to drown them out.
Yeah.
It's about bridging the gap between knowing what we should do and actually having the courage to do it.
I like that.
Yeah.
So we've got this rocket launch as a metaphor for a fresh start and this idea of our brains sending us signals, but how does simply counting backwards from 5 actually translate into real change?
Right.
I mean, it seems almost too simple, right?
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But the science behind it is fascinating. You see, when we hesitate, when we overthink, we're stuck in a loop in our brains.
Mm-hmm.
The 5-second rule, as simple as it sounds, is like a pattern interrupt.
Okay.
Counting backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1,
Yeah.
shifts your focus away from those feelings of doubt and fear.
It's like you're switching gears in your brain before those doubts can take over.
Exactly. And by shifting your focus to this simple task,
Yeah.
counting,
Right.
you engage your prefrontal cortex.
And remind me again what that part of the brain does.
It's like the command center
Okay.
for decision-making focus and breaking old habits.
Right.
The prefrontal cortex, when activated, helps you override the basal ganglia.
Which,
That's the part of your brain that governs your habits.
okay.
Those autopilot responses that often keep us stuck in our comfort zones.
So it's like a mental tug of war. And the 5-second rule gives your prefrontal cortex, the decision maker, the upper hand.
A perfect analogy.
Okay.
Think of it this way. You have that instinct,
Well.
that spark,
Right.
to do something that's your prefrontal cortex saying, let's go.
Right.
But then fear kicks in those old patterns.
Yeah.
And that's the basal ganglia trying to keep you safe, but also stuck.
Okay.
So the 5-second rule is like that burst of activation energy.
Yeah.
It propels you forward before your brain can talk you out of it.
Okay. This is making a lot of sense. It's like hitting the gas pedal on a car before your doubts can slam on the brakes.
Exactly.
It's that initial push to break free. And it all comes back to trusting your instincts.
And that's a key point.
Yeah.
The 5-second rule isn't just about making life-altering decisions.
Right.
It's about those everyday choices where we hesitate, like Robbins' story, the Frappuccino,
Oh, yeah.
that came from an assistant manager's instinct.
Okay.
He saw sales dipping in the heat,
Mm-hmm.
and bam, he acted on the idea of a blended coffee drink.
It's amazing how many times we hear those aha origin stories and realize how often great ideas come from trusting those initial instincts.
Absolutely. And the 5-second rule helps us hone that ability
Yeah.
to act on those flashes of brilliance instead of letting them fade away.
Yeah.
And just like those small choices led to the Frappuccino,
Right.
our daily 5-second decisions can create a ripple effect of positive change in our own lives.
So how does this play out in everyday life? What are some examples of how this rule can help with the challenges we face, beyond inventing a new drink?
That's where it gets really interesting. Let's talk about procrastination, for example, because Even procrastination has a surprising side.
Wait, are you saying there's such a thing as good procrastination?
Well, Robbins makes a distinction between what she calls destructive procrastination,
Okay.
avoiding tasks we know we need to do,
Right.
and productive procrastination, which is actually a crucial part of the creative process.
Productive procrastination that has a nice ring to it. But how does that work exactly? I thought procrastination, by definition, was a bad thing.
It can be, especially when it comes to those must-do tasks.
Right.
But think about those times you're working on a creative project, maybe brainstorming ideas or trying to solve a problem.
Yeah.
Sometimes stepping away, even if it feels like procrastination, can be incredibly beneficial.
It's like when you're stuck on a crossword puzzle and you put it down and then the answer just pops into your head later.
Exactly. When you step back, your mind can wander freely, making connections you might not have seen before.
Okay.
That's how those aha moments often happen. It gives your brain space to breathe.
So it's almost like there's a method to the madness, even in procrastination. But where does the 5-second rule fit into this? If you're in that productive procrastination mode, do you really need to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 yourself back to work?
That's the beauty of it. The 5-second rule works both ways.
Okay.
If you're stuck in destructive procrastination,
Yeah.
it's that nudge to get started. But if you're in the productive kind, the rule helps you overcome the resistance to finally sit down and act on those brilliant ideas that bubbled up during your time away.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not about forcing yourself into a rigid schedule, but using the rule as a tool to manage your energy and focus no matter where you are in the creative process.
Precisely. It's about being in tune with your own rhythms
Yeah.
and knowing when that 5-second countdown can help you make the most of those rhythms, whether it's diving in or stepping back.
This is really making me rethink my entire approach to work, honestly. But what about those times when it's not about procrastination, but fear holding us back? Can the 5-second rule really help with that? Those feelings can be intense.
Absolutely. And it's actually incredibly effective with fear and anxiety because it addresses them at a physiological level. Let's say you have to give a presentation, something that makes a lot of people anxious.
Oh, I can relate to that. The racing heart, the sweaty palms, the
Yeah.
feeling like you want to disappear.
Exactly. Those physical sensations are your body's fight or flight response kicking in.
Right.
But here's the thing. Your brain can't really tell the difference between the anxiety of giving a presentation and, say, the excitement of going on a roller coaster.
So our bodies react the same way to fear as they do to excitement.
In many ways, yes. The trick is recognizing that those physical sensations don't have to dictate our actions. We can choose to interpret them differently. That's where the 5-second rule comes in. Instead of getting swept away by those feelings, you use the countdown to interrupt the fear response. You're essentially telling your nervous system, it's okay, we've got this.
It's like saying to your fear, I see you, but I'm not letting you drive the car.
That's a great way to put it. And with practice, you can rewire your brain to respond differently to those anxiety-provoking situations. And that brings us back to a concept we touched on earlier, envisioning your future self.
Right. So how does that tie into overcoming these challenges, especially when fear is involved?
Well, imagine this. You're feeling that familiar surge of fear, maybe about going after a big goal or stepping outside your comfort zone instead of letting fear take over. You take a moment to visualize your future self. The person you want to become, this future you, is already living that bigger life, facing those challenges with courage and confidence.
So it's almost like borrowing that confidence from your future self to overcome present moment fear.
Exactly. By connecting with that vision of yourself, you tap into the emotions associated with it. You start to feel those feelings of courage, of accomplishment, and that can be incredibly empowering.
It's like giving yourself a pep talk from the future, no matter how small the action, whether it getting out of bed, finishing a project, or going after a lifelong dream. That vision can be a source of strength and motivation. This has been so eye-opening, honestly. It's more than just a productivity hack. It's like a framework for living with more intention.
You've hit the nail on the head, and one of the most powerful things about the 5-second rule is its simplicity. It's a tool anyone can use anywhere, anytime. It's about recognizing those moments of hesitation, those internal debates, and making a conscious choice to act.
It's about trusting our instincts, overcoming those inner roadblocks, and stepping into our full potential.
Absolutely. It's about remembering that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to act in spite of it.
This entire deep dive has given me so much to think about. It's not just about the big life-changing decisions. It's about those everyday moments where we have a choice to hesitate or to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and leap.
And those leaps, no matter how small they seem, can lead to incredible destinations.
That's such an important reminder. So for anyone listening, the next time you feel that nudge, that instinct to make a change, remember the 5-second rule. What's one small step you can take right now in the direction of the life you want to create?
What will your 5-second countdown lead to?
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the 5-second rule. Until next time.